Guys, hit that like button down below if you are hyped after that brand new event that happened, or if you didn't get into the event. But yeah, guys, that event was pretty crazy, and if you didn't get in, don't worry. We're going to be covering all of the different things about it, and actually, it was pretty common not to actually get into the event. They had like a capacity thing for some reason. I don't know why. However, we're going to be going over a recap of the event and explaining all of the secrets about it, what exactly it means, what exactly the first-person scenes mean, what Jonesy was saying to you, and the very important things about that, and of course all of the hidden secrets in the event. We're going to be covering all of those things in today's video, so you are fully up to date on what is happening with this event and what is going to be happening. So with that being said, if you guys are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below and turn on notifications for more videos about season 3, because there's going to be a lot coming out soon. You don't want to miss that. And on top of that, if you appreciate these videos keeping you in the know, be sure to use code TheLlamaSir in the item shop. I appreciate that a ton. It helps support the channel, especially if you're getting the next season's battle pass. It helps out a lot. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, first things first, before we get into it with the secrets and explaining exactly what the storm water means and all of those crazy things, let's first just recap the event, because a lot happened. If you were watching the event, or if you got in the event, or if you were like a lot of people and you didn't actually get into the event, this is just to remind you of everything that happened in case you missed something. Starting out with the event, everybody got put near the agency, which is pretty expected considering that's where we already knew all of the storm device stuff was located. Now, when the event actually started, the counter, went all the way down to 0, and then these things started to come out of those like missile silos, and they got super tall. They had like the electric beam beacons on top of them, and then after that, the center of the agency completely blew up, and then the main storm device, the device itself, started to raise up out of the center. So that went all the way up quite a ways. It turned on and started to connect with the beacons around it. Basically, there were a lot of different effects, and it pushed the storm away. That's right, guys. It was pushing the storm away from it, which is really cool. After that, we got into one of the most interesting things, which was a first-person scene. That's right. It was like this flashback type first-person cinematic, which was really, really interesting, and you can actually hear a character outside of the window saying something, but we'll circle around back to that when we explain more about it, because what he says is very interesting. But yeah, that flashback goes away, and then we get back into game, and the storm has turned like even more intense than it was before. It's back. It didn't get pushed all the way. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, really coming down. So more effects go off. There's also a bunch of floating stuff. I think you get pulled towards the orb around that time. Either way, the device powers up even more and pushes back the storm once again, and then all of a sudden, the entire map turns into this super beautiful, sunny version of the map, like the storm has been fully pushed away. However, that's not exactly the case. Soon after that, I believe the main towers and stuff go down, and then we get another flashback into that room, or we don't exactly know it's a flashback. We'll talk about that. We get to hear a little bit more, and then we're sent back into the normal map, where we get to find out that the storm has turned into water. That is right, the entire outside of the storm is water. There's stuff floating around in it. The yacht is like way up at the top. There's fish and stuff. We'll look more detailed into that in just a second, but it's pretty crazy. And then finally, we get one more flashback where the person outside of the window talking opens up the door, and we see that it is Jonesy. And this is actually a skin and stuff like that. It was just decrypted and things like that. But yeah, Jonesy talks directly to you, and that in and of itself is pretty crazy. But yeah, after that, it goes back to normal. You get on the battle bus and you go back into the center of the map. So that is the recap of the event itself, but what does everything around it mean? Well, let's start off with the most interesting thing that starts to give us a better idea of what's happening, and that is what Jonesy is saying in those flashbacks. So first things first, let's start off with a very important secret here. Whose office is this? There's actually a lot of clues hidden around this office that you may have missed. Now, first of all, the first thing that I noticed is these pictures on the wall. These are never seen in the game elsewhere, and you can clearly tell that in each of the pictures is Jonesy himself, or more specifically Agent Jonesy, which is the one talking outside of this room, and then he later comes into the room. But yeah, you can clearly tell that that is indeed him, so this seems to be his office. That is also confirmed more clearly by the fact that on the front of the desk, it literally says John Jones, or in other words, Jonesy, his nickname. I didn't know his name was actually John Jones. Is that like a really important thing they just revealed? Jonesy's full name, but either way, this is indeed his office, or Agent Jonesy's office. On top of that, there are also a bunch of files on top of his desk, which are pretty interesting. They all say top secret, and there's one for Midas, also one for the engineer, which is believed to be Midas's wife, and then of course Lynx, which I find to be very interesting as well. Maybe Lynx is their daughter? That could make a lot of sense. But either way, those 3 files are on that desk. Also on top of that, the final thing I found interesting with this is that you can see a little TV monitor of the storm happening. So this, like him talking and all of that, is going on while the storm is going on, like in the game, if that makes sense. They're happening at the same time. Now let's jump into what exactly he says. So the first thing, and we got captions for this, so we do know exactly what he's saying. He says into his phone, so he's talking to somebody on the phone, no, everything is not stable over here. We are actually, and then he talks to Janice, which is like actually he's talking to them person to person. He says, Janice, dial the resonance actuator to 7.2 now, please. Yes, right now. Then she says that she's on it, and then he goes back to talking onto the phone to this mysterious person, which I have a guess as to who this is, but we'll talk about that coming up here. He says, wait. Hold on. It's not just a storm? What does that mean? Yeah, that is very interesting. It's not just a storm? He doesn't actually explain more about that, but I'm assuming that he's talking about the storm that they're pushing away with the storm device and how it then eventually turns into the storm that's, well, water. It's a giant water wall around the map, meaning that it's not a usual storm. It's something weird, something not normal within this world, an anomaly, if that makes sense. So going back to what Jonesy says, he then goes on to say, must be connected to the loop, but there's no way we could have predicted that it would react this way at this. And it cuts off right there, goes back into the map where we then get to see the storm wall. And then there's one more flashback, but first of all, we got to talk about what he says right there. Must be connected to the loop. That is a very, very important clue, because that means that all of this stuff happening is connected to how we got to chapter 2. As you remember, in season X, the loop was a very important thing to talk about. The 7 talked about the loop and all of that stuff and breaking it or whatever, or getting through it. That was very confusing back then, but basically that is how we got to the chapter 2 map, was by going through the loop and then the black hole and all of that stuff, resetting everything back to normal, because if you remember, all of the rifts and stuff were causing things to get crazy. So it's looking like we may be going back to that. Like, it didn't fully work. Not everything was fully stabilized after that loop that the visitor and everybody was working on. That's why we're getting these weird storm walls of water that don't obey like normal physics. That's why all those things are, you know, going crazy. But yeah, then there's one final flashback that also explains a lot of stuff. This is super interesting too. Or I shouldn't say it explains a lot. It actually asks a lot more questions. But he does say this, and that worked? How long do you think it'll hold? And I think he's talking about how the storm device within the agency, because it does appear that he's inside the agency. I think they're talking about how it stabilized the storm, even though it like freaked out and turned into water and stuff like that. At least it wasn't doing the crazy storm stuff that was reacting as the event was going on. He also then says, good, everything is starting to stabilize here. Nothing seems to be, and that's when he walks into the door and sees your character standing there. What the? How are you even? Wait. Can you hear me? Yeah, you know how I said that this asks a lot of questions? That's what I'm talking about right now. So obviously we got to come up with some ideas of what he means here. And there's 2 questions I want to ask. Who is he talking to on the phone, and why is he so surprised to see you in his office? So first of all, with the thing about who he's talking to on the phone, there's actually 2 ideas I have. The first of which is that he might be talking to one of the 7. We do know that the 7 were referenced in the trailer for this season, so it would make sense that that is who he's talking to, considering that they know about the loop and details about the storm and things like that. On top of that, he could also be talking to Midas, because Midas is the one who's in charge of the device itself. He's controlling the things with the storm, so he would know why everything is like stabilizing with it as it's going on in real time. So one of those 2 things I think is very likely. However, I more importantly want to talk about why he's so surprised that you were in his office. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure. One of the ideas I have is that, well, you're the player in the game, but he's in like some different observatory type area. Like maybe he's in charge of the game itself. Maybe he's outside of the loop looking in and he's watching what's happening. But at the same time, he knows who you are and you're, again, the player. I think that's why he's reacting in such an interesting way. Also, there's the fact that you're in first person during this scene and you can move around and all of that. You can even look down and like see your body, which again seems to point towards like you, the player, being teleported into Jonesy's world right here. But at the same time, he knows who you are because he says, "You can hear me?" or something along those lines, right? That's not something you just say to a random person. He must know who you are, that you're somebody from the game, and that's why he's so surprised that you can hear him. I don't know, there's a lot of questions there, but I want you guys to leave your comments down below. I think we'll be seeing a lot more about that dynamic between this Jonesy and the players in the game in season 3. I think that's what it all means pretty much, since they will also need to be working on the storm being crazy with all of this underwater stuff and things like that. But yeah, comment what you guys think down below. I'd love to hear it. But without further ado, that is going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more fun videos like this coming up, especially with season 3 just around the corner. Also, you can check out some fun videos on the screen right now. Just click one, it'll bring you to it. But again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one.